Well, that race certainly was something. So I guess let's talk about it. Coming up next. What's going on, everybody? Hope you're doing good today. And we definitely had a race in Nashville, and it was once again a tale of two races, tale of three races, really, if you want to come right down to it. So let's start with the first part of the race before the rains came, because there was a rain delay, I guess, that a lot of people forgot about. And before the rains came, well, Christopher Bell was definitely the most dominant car of this race. But after the rain came, there was a jumbling up of pit strategies and things like that. Christopher Bell got shuffled toward the back of the pack, or at least toward the end of stage 2. I can't exactly at this point remember what happened because so much other stuff happened in between. Anyway, Christopher Bell got back there, got frustrated on one of the restarts, made a mistake, and took himself out. He said so in so much as the interview afterwards that he got frustrated, got back in the pack, got frustrated, and made a mistake and took himself out. So the fastest car in this race fell out of the race pretty early on. And in my notes, I had that as that's going to be one of the big talking points of this event. We're going to talk about how Christopher Bell had this thing pretty much locked up. But then the rest of the race happened, and really, I think a lot of people forgot that Christopher Bell dominated the first half of this race. And I think the best way to talk about the rest of this race is let's just go ahead and get the top 10 and the good race and the bad race out of the way, because as I go through each driver, we're going to see kind of what happened and unfolded in this race. So let's start with the winner here, Joey Logano. He needed 5 overtimes. That's right, you heard me right. 5 overtimes. That is a NASCAR record for overtimes in the Cup Series at least. So Joey Logano benefited from that. They kept their heads in the ball game. I mean, let's not say anything negative. I mean, they did what they needed to do to win the race. They had to have a lot of fortune fall their way. Like I said, the 5 overtimes caused a lot of fuel strategy, and we're going to get into those drivers that it affected after the fact. Zane Smith here with the second place. A good finish for Zane Smith. He was one position away. If he could have passed Joey Logano, one position away from going from the guy that started all the races that is worst in points to not only being in the playoffs, but he probably would have won Rookie of the Year if he won a race, because I'm not sure if Josh Berry or Carson Hocevar is going to win a race this season. So Zane Smith was one position away from totally flipping the playoffs on its head. So that would have been insane if he did that. And good run for him. Super glad he had that run. He's had an awful season, to be totally honest. So good that they can finally get some positive momentum going over there, even though it was a circumstantial race, to be totally honest. Tyler Reddick ends up finishing third. Tyler Reddick was one of the guys that actually had speed. They could have contended with Denny Hamlin, who we'll talk about in a minute here, or Christopher Bell, no matter who was in the lead there. So Tyler Reddick, he's got to feel like he let one slip away. He did win the bracket challenge, though. So there you go, your bracket challenge winner, Tyler Reddick. I'm sure he's super stoked about that. That's a joke. If you saw the interview afterwards, you could see Tyler Reddick is totally dejected. Knew he had a fast car. Knew he probably should have won this race. Ryan Preece with a 4th place finish. A good finish for them. That hopefully gets some positive momentum sparked over there in the 41 car, the cursed car for Stewart-Haas Racing, to be totally honest. Chris Buescher, good 5th place finish. That'll help him in the points. Ryan Blaney finishes 6th. Bubba Wallace finishes 7th. He pitted with like 80 laps to go, so they went with an aggressive pit strategy there that bailed out a nice 7th place finish, because even though he was good at the beginning of this race, toward the middle and basically the beginning of the second stage, whatever they found on his car, they lost it. So he definitely bailed him out there with that 7th, or Booty Barker bailed him out there with that 7th place finish with a good pit strategy to, with 80 laps to go ahead and pit. So that worked out for them. Kyle Larson, this is probably, and this is where I want to stop right here, and let's just talk about Kyle Larson. I am probably one of the biggest Kyle Larson fans out there. I have no problem saying that. I try to call things down the middle, and this is one of those moments where I'm going to have to call things down the middle. Even though I'm a huge Kyle Larson fan, this is probably the worst race in Kyle Larson's career. So I'll start with the positive. He did pay Denny Hamlin back earlier in the race. He didn't touch him, didn't make contact, but he raced him the way that Denny Hamlin had raced him previously, the previous race. He, when he got position on him, he just ran him wide and made Denny Hamlin run up a groove, which is something we've seen Denny Hamlin do to him several times here, at least this season. But other than that, I got to say this about Kyle Larson. The restarts for Kyle Larson were awful, and I even in the Discord, if you were with the Discord, I was like, they just jinxed Kyle Larson by saying he's the best restart guy in the business. The first restart, let's just go to that, where he ran in there way too hot, and basically he was trying to move Denny Hamlin out of the way to make sure Denny Hamlin didn't win this race. But in doing so, he took out Ross Chastain, and Ross Chastain was having a really good race. So that was the first incident that he basically caused. The second restart, he missed a gear, or he spun the tires or whatever. I don't know. He never got going. That bunched up a bunch of people in the back of the pack and caused another caution. So that was 2 cautions in a row. And then, of course, the third caution that he caused on a restart was when he ran out of gas and cost Kyle Busch basically his race, where Kyle Busch had done nothing wrong. They found some speed halfway through this race and had worked their way into the top 5 with track position and strategy. They were doing, Kyle Busch and the RCR group had done everything perfect. You know what? I'm going to talk about that in just a minute. But let's stay focused on Kyle Larson here. Probably the worst performance I've ever seen in his Cup career. And that being said, I'm not trying to downgrade or throw shade or anything like that. Obviously, because like I earlier said, I'm a fan. But every once in a while, even the really good drivers have a race like this. I clearly remember Jeff Gordon, I think it was at Sonoma, or maybe Watkins Glen. He had a race like this where he was just running through the field, using his bumper aggressively and liberally. And I remember pretty early on in the interview after the race, he said, "Hey, this is not a race I'm proud of." And he just got it out of the way in that interview pretty early. I think when Kyle Larson looks back at this, he's going to be like, "Yeah, I'm not necessarily exactly proud of this race." But like I said, all drivers have bad races, even the great ones. And I think this was just a bad race for Kyle Larson, especially with those restarts there at the end. Nothing you can do about running out of fuel, other than they probably should have brought him into the pits. But it is what it is. Not his greatest performance in his Cup Series career. So let's just call it like it is here. Back to the rest of that top 10 here. Daniel Hemrick there in 9th. Good finish for them. They needed that. Noah Gragson continues to get good runs here when he's able to finish races. So 10th place for Noah Gragson. Continues some positive momentum over there. And then 11 through 15, AJ Allmendinger finishes 11th. Denny Hamlin there in 12th place. Gotta be frustrating for him. Definitely had a car capable of winning the race and was in good position until those 5 overtime restarts there for Denny Hamlin. Justin Haley with 13th there. Good run for him. Absolutely battered car, but he brings it home 13th. Continues his positive momentum over there for Rick Ware Racing. Alex Bowman 14th there. Nothing to write home about, but it continues a good points day at least for him. And Austin Cindric ends up in 15th. And it was the Austin Cindric spin where he just ran out of room trying to pass Noah Gragson there. At least that's what I saw. I don't know. Depends on what you're watching, I guess. But he ran out of room there trying to pass Noah Gragson. Self-spin. I didn't see any contact. So, yeah, he brought out the caution that started all this. And then Chase Elliott with the self-spin with 80 laps to go brought out the caution for all those guys that pitted with 80 laps to go. It benefited them. Aforementioned Bubba Wallace, that's how he got the finish that he got. So, yeah, those 2 cautions set up the 5 overtime restarts, basically. Those are the 2 series of events that kind of started that particular deal to get in motion. But those are the guys that had the good race. Now let's take a look at the guys that had a bad race, because that's going to tell the rest of the story of this race. And let's start here in number 24 with Martin Truex Jr. If you saw on one of those last restarts before they ran out of gas, I guess, before him and Denny Hamlin pitted, Martin Truex Jr. looked like he was about to pass Denny Hamlin, or at least was making a move to pass Denny Hamlin. He ends up finishing 24th, so Martin Truex Jr., all I can think about is what might have been. Brad Keselowski had a fast car today, too, finishing in 25th. He got caught up in one of those accidents as well. Then you see here, 27th place, Kyle Busch. And that's who I want to talk about. Kyle Busch didn't do anything wrong this race, and this has just been a snake bit season for him. They've had speed this season, but they have not gotten any of the results, whether it be pit road issues and things like that. But this particular race, it was just glaring. He started off this race really slow. They had a issue on pit road where he overshot the pits, lost some track position. He had went a lap down. He was might have been 2 laps down at one point. Anyway, they fought hard. They found some speed and actually got their track position back. They got the lap back as well. And they were on the lead lap, and once he got on the lead lap, they used some pit strategy to get some track position. And then, after he got the track position, he was able to pass cars, which was rare. Like, it was really difficult. I'm not going to say rare, but it was difficult to make passes at this track. Kyle Busch was passing cars. He probably had a top 5 car the way he had track position and his car was able to drive. You even saw Denny Hamlin. Denny Hamlin with the fastest car toward the end of the race after Christopher Bell fell out. He had a really, really hard time getting past Kyle Busch, whereas Ross Chastain, he was able to, once he caught Ross Chastain, he was able to get past him within 5 or 6 laps. It took him 10 or 15 laps to get past Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch was set up for a great finish, and some momentum that they definitely needed was definitely going to help them in the points, and now they sit well, just because of the way the points shook out. We'll have to get to that in a minute. Sitting in a terrible position, but he had fought his way up. RCR had showed some fight. They showed that they were ready to get it back in this thing, showed that they had some speed to get a good finish, and it just didn't work out with these 5 cautions here at the end. Kyle Larson running out of gas ends up costing him his whole day, and that has just been the way the season has gone for Kyle Busch. But it was looking like it was 100% going to be a positive thing. But yeah, he was caught up in one of the 5 cautions there. Then we go down to 32nd. His teammate, who was definitely going to finish in the top 20 or top 15, Austin Dillon, had a good qualifying effort, qualified 11th. They got off in the middle of the race, but looked like they had found some speed and were going to get back into the top 20 with whatever they found there at the end. He ends up getting caught up in one of those incidents as well, not of his own doing. So once again, RCR, they need to, I don't know, hire a witch doctor, a Catholic priest, have a seance, get rid of whatever demons are over there. They're just having an awful season luck-wise at RCR. Not necessarily speed-wise, but luck, oh my goodness. Ross Chastain, here we go. In 33rd, Ross Chastain. They had amazing pit strategy. He had gotten off, like he had some trouble in the pits and things like that. Got himself sort of shuffled back in the pack. Had worked his way back up to 11th with some good strategy. He got himself into the lead there and had a great battle with Denny Hamlin there toward the end. Denny Hamlin, a much faster car. Denny Hamlin did get around him, but he did look like he was going to finish second. And then on one of those restarts, looked like he was going to have something for Denny Hamlin possibly, or at least it would have been interesting. But Kyle Larson, Kyle Larson takes him out there being way aggressive, probably trying to drive Denny Hamlin the way he had been driven. And as far as Kyle Larson goes, you got to be smarter in those situations. Yes, you want to show Denny Hamlin how he's been driving you, but you can't do it. You've got to pick your situations. You can't do it on a restart because then it's going to affect the rest of the field. In this particular case, it cost Ross Chastain. Ross Chastain, once again, just like Kyle Busch, didn't do anything wrong this race. Ran an absolute perfect race and was taken out by circumstance in this one, just like Kyle Busch. And Christopher Bell in 36 there, already talked about him. His was sort of self-induced, so no need to go over that one. But yeah, that was that. So now, after all this, let's take a look at the points and how it shook up the points. As far as regular season points and who's going to be the regular season series champion, it does break the tie between Kyle Larson and Chase Elliott. Kyle Larson has now advanced a few points ahead of Chase Elliott with his finish, rallying to finish where he finished, and then Chase Elliott having the spin at the end of this race as well. As for the playoff picture, which is what everybody's starting to focus in on, Kyle Larson, Denny Hamlin, Christopher Bell, William Byron there at the top. Chase Elliott in 5th here. 6th place is Tyler Reddick. 7th is Ryan Blaney. 8th is Brad Keselowski. Of course, all of them locked in with a win. But here's where it gets interesting. Because of Joey Logano's win, he was going to be the last guy in on points anyway as it stood. But it was razor thin between him and Bubba Wallace. But with this win, it creates a huge gap here. So Joey Logano in 9th, Daniel Suarez and Austin Cindric, who would be out of the playoffs without the win, but they have the win, so they're in the playoffs at 10th and 11th. Then you got Martin Truex Jr. at plus 143, Ty Gibbs at plus 70, Ross Chastain at plus 66, plus 56 for Chris Buescher, so about one race worth of points for Chastain and Buescher. Also about one race worth of points there for Alex Bowman in 16th, minus 51 for Bubba Wallace. Probably the only guy who can still point his way in, but I would say even for Bubba Wallace on back here, all these guys are basically in win or go home mode. Chase Briscoe, Kyle Busch, Josh Berry, Todd Gilliland, Carson Hocevar, your top 22 there. So yeah, so much for the interesting cut line battle that we had going on. Joey Logano puts an end to that with the win today. So that's really the big takeaway from the point story side of things. And that's all I got for you on this one. If you made it this far, would love to have your subscription. If not, I'll keep making these things. If you're already subscribed, you know I appreciate you all as well. If you got a question, comment, or anything like that, leave it down in the comment section. I try to get to as many of them as I can. If you want to help out the channel, visit the merch store. We got sweatshirts, hats, stickers, t-shirts, and probably some other stuff that I'm not thinking about. The link is in the description. And other than that, hope your Monday doesn't suck. Peace.